So UFC is being quite shitty at the moment for quite a few reasons. And one of those reasons is the UFC aren't promoting their fighters in a time where the fights are really bad and the good fights aren't happening. And the UFC marketing team needs to wake up. Some people market their toes better than the UFC markets their fighters. So MMA Guru recently made a video about how boxing is promoting way better than the UFC, and the UFC need to implement things like face-to-face interviews between the fighters and stuff. But I also have another idea which the UFC can implement in order to promote their fights better. So yeah. So what I think the UFC needs to implement is face-to-face stare-downs at UFC events. Not a face-to-face stare-down in the middle of the media room with the crickets. So a lot of different fighters go to UFC events to watch the fights. Example of these fighters who go to UFC events to watch the fights are like Aljamain Sterling, Buckley, Usman, and Merab. Merab's everywhere in the world, but anyway, like if two fighters are booked to fight and conveniently they both go to the same UFC event, the UFC should organize a face-to-face between these fighters before they fight, for the main event. So an example of this is, say, at UFC 317. It's JDM versus Bilal Muhammad. Before that fight, you can pit Usman and Buckley if they are at the stadium or arena, whatever you call it. You can put them in the octagon and have them face off. Buckley is likely going to talk trash to Usman, and Usman's likely to respond. But even if Buckley and Usman, if they face to face in the middle of the crowd roaring, they don't trash talk, putting them in that environment increases the chances by like 40-50%, them being tension with adrenaline and the crowd roaring.
I ain't backing up. You hit me, I'm still coming. And I'm coming all night long. Please don't back up.
And that's going to create a much better promotion than them just being in a quiet Apex arena or whatever it is and having a face-off. And if the UFC say, oh, we can't do this because it's going to delay the event by 5 minutes, the UFC filmed a movie before in the stadium, so that's not a valid excuse. And say Buckley isn't in the crowd, but Usman is, then still bring Usman into the cage if Bilal wins, because then Bilal could possibly win and be the next title challenger. Also, even if the fight doesn't happen, we'll have great memes as MMA fans because they're going to trash talk each other. And you never know, they maybe could start fighting in the cage like they apparently did in the podcast room. So yeah. I'm going to tell you something very obvious. That's going to create views. And I think that's what the UFC want. They want views. And they want the sport to become one of the most popular in the world. And that's going to actually help do that. So now I'm going to name all the benefits of having fighters face off before main events in the UFC octagon. So say Buckley and Usman face off, then something embarrassing or some drama happens at the face off, then other UFC fighters and welterweights are going to give their opinion on what happened on Twitter, and then that's going to cause like Usman or Buckley to respond on Twitter, which can create more feuds or more future feuds in the future, which is going to hype up matchups more. It's going to give the UFC YouTubers and social media pages more content to talk about, give more questions to the interviewers to ask because their interviews are boring as hell. Cool moments from face-offs can be used in TikTok edits, which will get the young fans interested. Also, it will create energy in the crowd, especially if two fighters are trash talking. Also, it gives you more value for your ticket as a fan because you're not only there to watch the fights, but you also get a form of entertainment, which could be two fighters trash talking each other in the middle of the octagon. It's very simple. I'm trying to list every single benefit of this for the UFC because I feel like if I don't list the benefits, they'll be too dumb to actually understand what I was talking about. You see this picture here of the monkey on the screen right there? I'm actually would not be surprised if that monkey is one of the UFC executives sitting in the UFC headquarters. I wouldn't even be surprised. So another thing which the UFC can do, which sometimes they actually do and actually brings great results, and actually surprise, is that when a fighter wins a fight and one of their top contenders is in the crowd, bring that top contender into the octagon and make them do a face-off. Very simple. For example, say if Bilal beats JDM, which is not going to happen because JDM's going to KO Bilal. But anyway, say Bilal beats JDM, then you bring Buckley into the octagon, who is probably likely going to be the next contender for Bilal if he beats Usman. Both of those guys like to trash talk, which will build future hype for a matchup between Bilal and Buckley. Another example of this is after Dricus UFC beat Robert Whittaker, Israel Adesanya and Dricus UFC had a face-off in the cage, and there was lots of tension in it. For example, Israel Adesanya called Dricus the N-word and said he needs a DNA test to show where he's from. And this honestly built hype for the fight and made bad blood, which is what we want as MMA fans. We don't want fighters to be hugging and kissing before the fight. And also, it's free money because here are some examples of times when the UFC brought fighters who were at the event into the octagon after the fight, and look how many views it generated. As literally free money to promote fights, because you even get YouTube views and also it's going to build future hype for the fight. But literally the cheapest way of promotion. You don't have to hire your marketing, your overpaid editing team who's going to edit a fight promo on your YouTube channel, which no one's actually going to watch. Also, if a UFC fan shares video, not just because I want views, yes, because I want views as well, but also sharing this information could spread, and then maybe the UFC could start implementing this more, which will make the sport better. But yeah, it's your boy Sasha and May, and I'm out.